Alright, so I first start with the body, and I try to do the large seam first. That usually goes down the back, and I start off with just a whip stitch at the front, and then I go into a ladder stitch or the double gathering stitch or whatever stitch you want. You can continue the whip stitch as well down that entire seam. And then I do the darts as well. So once that seam is done, I then go and continue with each dart. Now for the head, I start off with the chin first. And some people like to start at the base of the neck and work their way up. I like to start the opposite and work from the lip, bottom lip, and work my way down. And I just continually sew that, pulling and picking the seam as I go. And snipping the end. So I set everything up for the head, and it's all right if the mouths are a little droopy and stuff like that. I'm just using this for the top of the head, and I'm sewing the top of the head, so I go all the way down and following the seam from the back of the head.
Woman beg, and I make a good woman steal. I make an old woman blush, and I make a young girl squeal.
And then once that's done, I do the top seam of the head. Brush it all out, get all the seams plucked, and now I move on to the arms. So I just do the exact same thing. I just do my stitch all the way down to the end, and then do the same for the other arm. And then I continue with the thumbs. So the thumbs, I start off on, you can pick whatever end you start at, but you're essentially just going to sew that entire seam. I'm using a whip stitch here. And once it's done, you can turn it inside out and place it on the thumb. I use a dowel to help push the thumb out a little bit. And when you're placing the thumb, just make sure the seam is down, so it's on the opposite side of the fingers. That's just so that it doesn't show on camera. And there you go, that's it so far. Now for the hands, I am going to machine sew these. You could do them by hand, but I prefer to do machine sewing. You're going to basically trace. Now when you trace, make sure you do the circle and you want to flip it. And then you're just simply going to sew around that seam. Don't sew the circle though, or the bottom of the hand. Pick my thread and away we go. Now once you're done sewing, I just simply cut it out and just try not to snip the thread as you're going. And then simply turn them inside out. Fit them on the hand. Now the thumb goes through that circle. So time for puppet building 101. So right now we have a puppet with a sleeve, and the sleeve goes down the tube of the body. I'm going to attach the neck together with the head, as well as the base of the sleeve with the bottom of the tube. Or you can not attach the head to the body and have the neck kind of free flow. But if you're doing that, you have to attach the base onto the body and then grab the extra sleeve piece and use that for the neck. And guess what? I decided to glue the head to the body. So attaching the head onto the foam, I need to add glue to the base of the head, as well as the neckline for the foam body. Follow the front line of the face to the front of the body and the back of the head to the back of the body, and then just pinch the two together. And then once that's together, you are then going to grab this sleeve and pass it through the body. Now we're going to go back a little bit to the fabric, and we're going to sew the head onto the main body. And so by doing so, you're going to get the center line is on your body and pin that to the center line of the back of the head as well as the front, and then just slowly add clips just to make sure that it doesn't bunch up, and then sew by hand. You can also use a machine if you want as well. Now once that's done, you're then going to turn it right side in or right side out and put it back onto the body. And there's going to be a little bit of filling around you have to do to make sure it just fits on loosely. You're just fitting it on, you're not doing anything special with it or anything like that. And for the mouth, you're going to pin it back. Now I'm going to do this because I need to add glue around the base of the mouth as well as on the mouth plate to attach the fabric to the mouth plate. So I grab, it's a tailor's pen, the ink will disappear after a certain while, and add a little bit of a gutter to where I want the fabric to be. And then I grab a more detailed brush and brush on some barge glue both onto the mouth plate following the line that I just made as a guideline, as well as onto the fabric so that the fabric will have something to attach itself to. And then I go around and attach slowly the fabric onto the mouth plate. Now when I do so, I make sure there's a little bit of an overhang on the fabric to the mouth plate, little bit around the rim. As you can see, the mouth is not clean, it's all jagged, it looks kind of ugh. So what I want to do is clean that up. So you can clean that up by following now the line that you made with either scissors, or I like to use a razor blade, Persona blade. And it cleans it up really nicely. So you have a nice clean mouth line.
From the storm, hold on, girl, I got the right tactics to turn you on. And girl, I wanna be the papa, you can be the mom. Oh oh.
You can pucker it on each side of the mouth, corners of the mouth, so it looks more like a Muppet. And as you can see, it's very flexible with the plastic. Now for the back of the head, I'm going to use a razor and cut into it. It's that easy. Now I have access to the back of the head, so I could place eyes as well as some polyfill in there just to fill it in, but I'll do that later. So now with the arms, I'm going to continue with the arms and hands and sew the hands to the arms. And then I sew the thumb onto that fabric as well. And I do this to both arms and hands. Now with the top, I roll it down a little bit and it allows me access so that I could put the doll joint in. Now the doll joints, usually doll joints have an accept side and another side. If you try it the other way, the doll joint won't go in, so make sure it's the right way. You don't have to test it out because if you pop that in, it's going to stay in. Now the reason why I don't do it this way is because if I was to pop it in, my arm's going to be in it. It's going to jab into my arm while I'm performing. You don't want that. You want the doll joint to face the opposite way, this way. So that's why you're going to put the female side onto the arm. Now I simply use an edge and piece of sandpaper and sand everything down, and then add some glue to the shoulder of the arm as well as the dull joint itself. And I do a couple of coats with this just to make sure they adhere properly. I'm not wearing gloves, so I have to put my gloves on. Sorry, I totally forgot. So I had to take my gloves off so I could do this part because I don't want it sticking to my gloves. And I simply roll the dull joint over top and I get a perfect fit. And then I do kind of similar to the mouth. I put glue onto the fabric as well. Again, a couple of layers onto the dull joint on the opposite side. And then once both are dry, I just roll the fabric onto the dull joint. Now dull joints they're not the best way of attaching arms, they're a fast way. So if you want to, you can use, string and shoelaces and things like that. That's covered in the BJ Geyer Stan Winston course, so I recommend that. And once that fabric is down, you want to press it and make sure you get flat contact, because that dull joint you want to lay flat with the against the fabric. And then for the arm rods, essentially you're going to dig out the pouch that is in the hand, and once that is revealed, I like to kind of fit the rod in, make sure everything is snug, and then go back in with glue. You can use hot glue. I use barge glue and sometimes hot glue just to fasten both sides down. Make sure you get all around where the insert is for the pouch for the fabric. And just line that up with the pouch and kind of put it over top so that you get, it kind of hides that pouch. Or that pocket. I keep calling it pouch, but it's pocket. And once that's done, I end up sewing them anyway, but you don't necessarily have to do that. But it's just good practice to kind of sew that so that it's permanent and it's not going to come undone years down the road or on the shoot.
Or it could have been the dog-getting-ness that caused the loss in the first place, I guess. I'm discovering you, says pure thought I'd never.
Now once both arms are done, what you're going to do is I like to pin where my arms are going to be, and then I use an aug to essentially poke a hole where that dull joint's going to go. I don't go on the seam. Make sure you don't go on the seam, just go beside the seam, and then poke the dull joint from inside the body out. You might need a pair of scissors just to clip the foam so that it comes out easily. Then I do the same on the opposite side, and just make sure that they're kind of equal distance to the head, that everything is kind of looks equal and in the same position on both sides. Now when you're snapping these arms on, make sure you have the right arm. If you put the left arm on the right arm, it's going to be opposite and it will show on these hands. So the thumbs should be up. And you're going to take it and then wrestle with the popping of the dull joint inside. I'm not gonna lie, it is tough. You might, if you're a kid, you might have to get an adult to help you do that. And same with the other side. So now he's done on both sides with both arms. And I'll do the interlocking fingers as everybody does once they're done. I still have to pick the hands out a little bit and get all the seams picked out. Now I'm going to attach the neck tube to the base of the body. And I simply add a little bit of glue to the base of the body as well as the tube, and then flip it over, attach it.
And the windows, try and trap that cool air in.
I then use a little bit of hot glue to put little spots onto the foam so that the foam doesn't shift. Clip everything down and then sew the fabric body to the tube.
Chancellor, without you on my mind.
Now you should have two of these patterns. One is for the base, and you can make another one for the neck if you do not attach the neck, the head to the body. So simply to attach this, you're going to leave it inside out and put it over the base of the body, making sure that the seam follows the seam line on the back of the body as well. And then you're going to sew them together. Now I made a little shirt and pants for this character. I thought I would go with a kind of 60s motif. Make him a little like Roosevelt Franklin. The eyes are still printing. I'm gonna add the uvula. I like to use felt that has a sticky back and place it where I want it, and then hot glue that in. And then for the tongue, I just make a quick little tongue out of paper. Make sure it's the right size. Trace it onto pink foam. Trim it up a little bit.
'Cause I'm only human after all, and you're
And then attach it where I think it should go with some hot glue. Now I gotta add some hair, and I'm going to measure, and I think 4 inches circle is good enough. I have a template that is 3.5, so that'll do. So then I just trace it onto fur or whatever I want for the hair. Use my Persona blade to cut that, fit it on, and you can kind of pin it down first and then glue it, or just glue it down and then sew it on. So the eyes are done. I sanded and primed those and then painted them, and then added the little black pupil to them, and I'm just trying out where I should place it. That's kind of the best. That's the kind of look I want it to be. So then I put the holes in for the eyes, mark down where the eyes are going to be, and I essentially just screw on the eyes from the back. And just tighten it using a long screwdriver. So I do that for both eyes. Perfect placement, I think anyway. And then I'm going to add some polyfill to the head to give it some shape. Then glue the foam pieces together and sew the back.
I'm no prophet or Messiah. You should go looking
And then add hair. So I'll hot glue this down like I said, and then sew all the way around to have a clean look, and then pick the seams, start picking seams and using a dog brush to do some finishing work, and then there you go, the finished Smally puppet.
I'm just a man. I do what I can. Don't put the blame on me. Don't put your blame on me.
The Creature Works Studio.